Hello and welcome to you, random person watching this video. Please join me as I review a 13-year-old movie that you've undoubtedly already seen, judged and relegated to the ethereal hazy expanse of your long-term memory. Why, you ask? I don't know, I'm bored. And this is better than staring into the void all day. Or is it? Maybe Iron Man 2 really is that bad. Plot twist, it isn't that bad. Not by any stretch of the imagination. It's fine. Ivan Vanko's introduction is actually pretty great. It contrasts between him and Stark really well, and the tonal differences between the end of Iron Man 1 and the beginning of this one is really interesting. It's dark and there's a sense of dread throughout this scene. Vanko's motivation is short and simple: ruin Tony Stark. It works for the character and I see no reason to overcomplicate his arc, so good job, writers. Vanko says it himself.
If you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in him. And there will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come.
He doesn't need to beat Tony or kill him, but he just needs to prove that he can be hurt, and also that it's not just Tony with arc reactor technology. Sam Rockwell, on the other hand, is wasted as Justin Hammer. He should have had way more to do, and he should have been far more of a threat. As it stands, he had to be incompetent to make room for Vanko to hijack Hammer Industries so that the plot could happen. If Hammer Industries is meant to be a glimpse of what Stark Industries would be if Tony hadn't been captured, then I feel Hammer should at least be competent, rather than just the butt of every joke. I suppose they wanted Vanko to be the serious bad guy and Hammer as the comedic one, but it doesn't work. I'll talk about the problem with the plot lines and how there are far too many of the damn things in the movie later. But for now, let's just say that Sam Rockwell needs his own movie, and not just playing second fiddle to Ivan Vanko. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Rhodey. Don Cheadle replaced Terrence Howard in the first MCU recast, and the switch was pretty seamless, to be honest. The movie doesn't make a big deal out of it, only giving us this line.
Look, it's me, I'm here, deal with it, let's move on.
And it works. Cheadle brings some levity and wit to the part, which I never totally got from Howard. Maybe it's his comedic timing or the line delivery, but he does really well, and he suits the more witty, jokey direction the MCU movies would eventually take. Scarlett Johansson is a really talented actor, but just like Rockwell, she's wasted in this introductory role. She doesn't have enough to do, and I understand they want to introduce her before the Avengers, but there wasn't really enough time. I personally think that there should have been a Black Widow and Hawkeye movie between this movie and the Avengers, but hey, never mind. Tony, Pepper, Happy and Coulson are much the same as the previous movie. Robert Downey Jr. is fun as always, and the rest of the cast are serviceable. They're good enough, but nobody stands out as being exceptional. This movie is a bit of a contradiction. Plenty of scenes are excellent, however the way they're squeezed together into 2 hours doesn't do them justice. First, let's have a look at some of the great moments. Tony's entrance is really fun, and it introduces some of the key themes of the movie, like Tony's ego and legacy, and as well as his palladium poisoning. It's a fantastic framing device for the rest of the movie. The Monaco sequence is great, Whiplash is a badass, and I don't think we've seen a suit-up scene this cool since it was all ruined in the trailers. The idea of an emergency suit in a briefcase I think works better than just nanotechnology, because it limits Iron Man's abilities, making the fight a lot more tense, and it also lets us establish it earlier in the scene. Also, did I mention, it just looks really cool. Tony watching his dad's video message was a pleasant surprise. I mean, finally we have an emotional beat to this movie, and it's one that they were thematically setting up with the Stark EXPO and the theme of legacy. Black Widow's fight scene is really exciting. It sets up her proficiency really well. I could have done with fewer cuts in the action, but overall it's quite well done. That said, there are far too many plot lines. We have to follow Ivan's revenge on Tony, Tony's palladium poisoning issue, Tony's creation of a new element, Tony's fights with the US military over the ownership of the suits, introducing Justin Hammer, introducing Black Widow, Pepper becoming CEO, and Nick Fury teasing the later movies. It's just too much for one movie. Jon Favreau did the best he could with what he was given, and he was smart by merging some of these plot lines, like putting Vanko and Hammer together, and also linking Black Widow, Nick Fury, and the palladium poisoning plotline. But it's not enough to save a bloated plot. Maybe 2 or 3 of these plot lines could have made a tight script, but there's just not enough time to cover this much ground. Is the movie still entertaining? Yes. Can I follow it? Also, yes. However, in this instance, less would have indeed been more. In a nutshell, the movie's biggest problem is its lack of focus. The film jumps around far too much for its own good, and the only positive I can take away from its hyperactivity is that I was at least never bored whilst watching. So there's that, I guess. Iron Man 2 acts more as a gateway to the rest of the MCU as a whole, rather than a movie in its own right. It's not as tight as the original, but I'd say it's at least a step above the Hulk as far as entertainment goes. Now, I get it, there's a lot that needs to be introduced and set up before the Avengers, but all of this should be moved to a couple of their own films. 6 out of 10 needs less studio interference next time.